It's another Human First AI marketing podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague at Avenue 9. You can find us at avenue9.com. My guest this week is Chad Burmeister. He is the host of the AI for Sales podcast. You can find him at chadburmeister.com. He has been an AI influencer for a while now, recognized by Forbes in the Next 1000. He's hosted that podcast for a long time, ton of followers and connections on LinkedIn and the podcast, and even exited an AI business already. How do you do that, Chad?
You know, hindsight's 2020, right? If I would have exited the year prior to the year that I did, we may have been in a different situation than we are now. But it was a good exit. I'm very happy with the partners who acquired BDR.ai. And I am still the proud owner of the website SDR.ai for someone who might be interested in acquiring such a website in the future.
That's great. I'm sure somebody will come up with a reason for that.
Yeah, or I'll build another one at some point. So we'll see.
Yeah, and now you're involved in data and AI at Informatica, which is another huge company doing data and have been for a long time. So you're all into the happenings and what's going on in the AI world. And it's been a couple of years since you and I have chatted. We've both been on multiple podcasts together before this one. So what do you feel like is new in 2025 that we should be aware of for sales or marketing?
So much has changed in AI in the last 2 years. I remember when my son was at Colorado School of Mines and he was in his second or third year, and we were out at dinner, and I had just heard of ChatGPT. In fact, I'd been using it for a year, unbeknownst to me, because it was part of a vendor called Nova.ai, and they were using GPT 2.5 way back when to personalize the first sentence of an email. So I got my feet wet 5, 6, 7, probably 7 years ago, using early iterations of GPT, and it would read your LinkedIn profile and it would personalize the first sentence. Well, then when it came out publicly and they changed it from GPT 2.5, it sounded like a code word. I was always like thinking it was a quarterback of the Washington Redskins or something. What is this? What is that? GP3C, whatever. Well, then they renamed it to ChatGPT, and it seems like that's when it really took off. And so I'm sitting at the dinner table with my son, 3 of his roommates, and I showed them the app on my phone, and they tried to stump it. They go, "Oh, let me just put in my homework assignment from last night." Yeah. And they read the code and they were like, "Oh, this is different." So when he graduated from Mines at the, I don't know, 50th anniversary, 150th, maybe, it was a pretty big number. It's been around a long time, but they had people on the screen, quotes of people saying, "Thanks GPT for helping me get through the hardest college in the country." But it's so powerful. What I think's changed, Mike, is that it's now being incorporated into everyday, all of the different apps that are out there, whether it's Grok, whether it's a Gmail, what you name it, it's under the hood, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And I guess we could talk about salespeople specifically and ask you where you think people should start, because I know a lot of people are just seeing, Einstein in Salesforce. They're seeing Copilot in Microsoft 365, or maybe they have a ChatGPT subscription at work and they're using it to write emails or outlines for presentations and stuff. But so let's kind of assume everybody is doing base level stuff. If they're not, here's your sign.
Start now. Wake up, the nap's over. You better get on the bandwagon, or you will be behind.
But what do you think is realistic in the latter half of 2025 for a sales SDR or BDR to be doing with AI?
Build your first custom GPT. Because in order to discover what's truly available and accessible to you as an individual, you'll never know. And it may sound difficult. My son, who I mentioned before, said, "Dad, it takes me 15 minutes. I could take the hundreds of years of human knowledge in the area you're talking about, and I could train it, and then I could build whatever you want, 15 minutes. And so I challenged him to the duel. It took about 44 minutes because he exaggerates like me, but 40 versus 20, same thing. We created this AI. We ended up calling it goalx.ai, and it just points to a custom GPT. And it asks its goal is to discover what it is you want. Most people don't know what they want in life, whether it's I want to lose weight, I want to save money, I want to buy a house in the mountains. It helps you articulate in a way by the end of the 12 to 18 questions, and it restates them over and over till you get them right. By the end of it, you get 2 paragraphs back that says, oh, Mike, this is what you want. And you go, yeah, I couldn't have even come up with something that cool. But it takes hundreds of years of communications, training, puts it into a GPT, and it was built in 44 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what it tells you to do.
And I think if we take that into like a sales and marketing context, I was doing that for my client this week already. I got a new client and I just collected all of their sales docs, all their marketing, all their sell sheets, all their presentations. You can either put those into like a Google notebook and you can do up to 50 sources and have a knowledge base there and then ask it questions to create your stuff. But I just kind of, I like the custom GPTs and ChatGPT because you can spin them up real quickly and put some key documents in there and then use some of those documents to write instructions to create the ChatGPT. So one of the coolest things about it now is you can just ask AI how to use AI. And so I said, what do I need to know? What are the audience, personas? What are their buying motives? What are the trigger events that, somebody for this new client would have? What are their fears, their worries? What are the competitors like in the space? And started to create this contextual database for the custom GPT. And now if I needed to speak on behalf of the owner, create a new blog post, a new email, whatever it is, it knows all about the company, all about the target audience, all about the service offerings that we have. And it's specifically writing for this company and this use case versus just going to, like you said, all of the world's information and saying, okay, well, here, you and I both know most salespeople miss quota. Over 50% of B2B salespeople miss quota. So if we go out to all of the world, we're going to get some pretty bad scripts. We're going to get some pretty bad.
Yeah, you're going to get some bad scripts. You've got to have the right training data. So I'll give you another example, Mike. One of the reps at Informatica, the OG, just like myself, him and I are kind of the OGs of Informatica BDMing. And he's got a way to send an email that will get a 40, 50% open rate. I have one that's 82% right now, a 18 to 20% reply rate. And it's just secret sauce, right? Of how you say what you say and to who you say it to. So if you upload a series of those emails, pre-event outreach, post-event outreach, cold, you upload those into the GPT and say, here, learn this. And then you just upload something. So then I had an oil and gas. Somebody gave me a list of 4 bullets of pain in oil and gas. And there's 5 areas, upstream, downstream, things I have no idea what they even mean. But you add the 4 bullets of the pain, 4 bullets of the value, write the email in this particular rep style, spits it out in a way that is magical, right? When I gave it back to the person, I said, would you change anything? He goes, I would change 1 word. And he goes, by the way, the PS part, he goes, I never even used that in any of my messages that you trained it with. How in the world did the AI know to add a PS that was better than what I could have come up with?
Yeah, so the PSs are great. That's a great little sales tip. But also, I hope people are catching on what's happening here, because what I see when the average person messes up with AI is they try to just write one simple prompt and say, write a sales message for me, or they don't give it the context, or they don't go back and forth and edit with it and play with it and perfect that craft. I think there's multiple steps to this, and it's not a one-shot deal. Is that fair?
Well, and that now that we've got this model built, here's another, this is AI for human first conversation, because if it was AI first and you said, okay, now that we've got it trained, all one has to do is take the marketing led email and put it in there and it'll spit out the exact right answer. Well, we did that and it came out with close, but no cigar. So until the model's fully baked out with enough lines of code in it that says, hey, even if you get uploaded something, it can't spit out the other side looking like what it came in as. It needs to be enhanced and made to look more like the other email. So the human in the loop, I just can't, being in this business for 7 years, I thought that at some point you could just hand over the reins. And what I've discovered is that there's a lot of fallacy in that. Do I think in 5 to 10 years, you'll be able to, an AI can maybe in 1 year even sell a fax line for $9.99? Yeah, the commodity kind of stuff. Could it handle my call if I'm on United stuck in Singapore? Yeah, I think it'll probably handle some of that. So there's certain things that it can do, but at the top and in the middle and in all levels, the human in the loop matters more than I ever suspected would be the requirement.
Yeah. So tell me more about that. I want to dive into it deeper of maybe what people should be thinking about and what parts not to have the AI try to do, and maybe what parts we should not have humans doing at this point in the sales and marketing process.
Yeah. When I wrote the book AI for Sales 6-7 years ago, Dr. Joel Laban wrote the forward and the backward to the book, and he read it twice. He's probably the only person on earth who's read it twice. There's people still buy that book, by the way. Every month I get a statement from Amazon. I'm like, wow, there's a tax return on this one. And it's a 7-year-old book. Great. But he wrote the forward and the backward, and he called out specific functions and tasks within a salesperson's job: writing a proposal, building a quote, building a PowerPoint, discovery questions, filling out your expense report, like all of those things. There were probably 28 of them, if I remember right. And then he called out which ones are the ones that a human should do and which are the ones that an AI could do. And it was surprising that an AI could take more and more of the tasks. The one, and I just had someone on my podcast yesterday about this, named Ari, and building trust. So can AI help you? Sure. If we have a conversation and the AI in a week sends a note, says, hey, you were on my podcast last week, Chad. I hope it went well. Did you have a chance to send this out to your 4,000 subscribers yet? You know, you could automate that task, and that follow-up would build trust. But at the core is the human intelligence and the human looking you in the eye and speaking in a certain way. So how do you, knowing trust is the commodity, is the most important thing. How does a seller learn to enhance that skill? That's my 18-month masterclass that I finished about 6 months ago on neuro-linguistic programming, NLP.
Oh, yeah.
And people communicate in one of three ways, right? You're either audio, you're visual, or you're kinesthetic. And so which one are you? So noticing what the other person, if they say, I see what you mean, well, then I should probably start using some visual language to build trust and rapport. Oh, I hear you. Oh, now you're in auditory words. Or if you're a thinking, feeling type, I tend to lean on that. Then you should use that kind of language. There's just so much in the world of communications that I think most human beings have not been exposed to. That's where I recommend you invest some time to become a better human, because the AI is going to take a long time to learn that kind of stuff.
Well, I think there was two hot takes in there for me. One is what I've been saying a lot is that trust is a slow process for humans, and AI is a fast tool. So look at your sales or marketing functions and think about what needs to be faster. If somebody says, hey, we got a meeting with the board on Thursday, we need a proposal, maybe you should use AI to write that and make sure they get it by Thursday, right? If you're trying to build some long-term trust in a relationship, AI is going to break down over these prompts, over these repeated messages, over complicated trust building, consensus building activities. It's just not there yet. That's the human part. The other part about what you said with the psychology, it is also not there in understanding what you're talking about with neuro-linguistic programming and how to read and respond to the context of the conversation or the person that you're talking to. However, what I found really cool, and there's some tools that I like Humantic AI, where you could actually research your potential buyer or whoever you're marketing to, figure out what their style is and segment your marketing list by that. Then have AI rewrite your sales cadence or your marketing drip campaign into those different buckets. So we could have a visual, an auditory, and a kinesthetic path in HubSpot and have AI rewrite the campaign, because salespeople and marketers tend to be bad at adapting to the other styles, unless you have this natural, which some people do, some natural tendencies to be able to do that and be empathetic enough to adapt your
Well,
style.
and it's interesting. There was a vendor out there called Joy AI, again, 5 years ago. You know, my BDR.ai was one of the early .ais, along with Seamless.ai. You know, when we ran into each other at a conference, we were like kindred spirits. Brandon, you're another .ai. It's amazing. And that was 5 years ago, before the hype. And Joy AI was one of those vendors, and they had the former CIO of Best Buy was part of this co-founding group. And then another guy who did hostage negotiation training for the FBI kind of thing. So they had to understand different personalities to be able to have these conversations. We helped them co-sell about 12 deals within a 1 year period and test this stuff before it was prime time ready. And when the CIO of Best Buy tells you there's 2 to 3 standard deviations of enhanced returns, I believed him. Now, the part I had a hard time getting my hands around was his requirement was, hey, in order for me to make this work, it needs to be 2 pages in an email because it needs to articulate their style. And I was like, wait a second. I can't get my arms around a 2-page email. I can get my arms around 2 paragraphs or a couple sentences and then breaking it up into 5 to 7 over a period of time, or a link to the longer article. And that's where we were kind of having to grind the gears a little bit during those times. But
it's gotten a lot better in the last couple of years. It's starting to look really short. I think it depends on how prolific people are and what you're selling, right? But if you're selling to somebody that's on LinkedIn and regularly publishing posts, it's not hard to get enough context to figure out what their disc personality style is, or their preferred NLP style there. But if it is somebody that's truly private, not lying and uses very short words, it's still pretty tough. There's some things maybe that you could infer from their position and their style and talking to them in short bursts, but it's a fascinating subject. And I think that's one where it might be a combination of both, that the relationship building and the trust building and the context is the human part, but maybe adapting the presentations, the messages, the landing pages is the AI part, where it's just really hard for humans to do that. We can't write 6 different versions of the same email. We get bad at it.
Well, and Ari's point yesterday, he kept all of his IP over the years of 30 years of work behind the firewall. And now he built Ari AI, and the only way to access his IP is either sign up for his training course or subscribe to his AI that helps you build trust at scale. And it's a neat idea. I think a lot of us for a lot of years said, hey, let's just give it all away, the content, as a strategy. And then if you really want to access the power of it, you're going to have to hire me, because all of those bits and pieces added up are what's important, right? It's hard to duplicate something unless you hire the person who kind of knows all about it. But Ari took a different approach and said, oh, I'm glad I held it behind the firewall for so long. So it's interesting, definitely an interesting world that we are participating in at the moment.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you see any other big trends, because you just hit that one for me, which I've always been a build it publicly kind of person. And that's what we're doing here, having this conversation while we're recording it and sharing it out in the world, mostly for SEO and now AIO or AEO, whatever you want to call it
Well,
now.
so
Is
let's
that
go
like
there
having
because
your
I've got a
information
good
be
example.
discoverable is a good thing, but also that means that like all the world's information is already out there. There's no more information businesses. I think intellectual property is kind of dead.
Well,
Um,
Josh Braun publishes a lot publicly. So at one point, I uploaded an email and I said, "Hey, make it more like a Josh Braun email." And so his IP was available in GPT, and it just did it. So that's a good example of he's put it out there, and he's doing fine, right, with that strategy.
exactly. Yeah.
Like Josh Braun, more power to you. I love the guy. His emails are amazing. He's just an amazing person. He's a good family guy with this. I mean, what a cool dude that guy is. JB, Josh Braun. But there's another person, my NLP coach, who's been doing it for 30 years. And she came to me and she said, Chad, I have every class recorded on audio that I've ever done for 25 years. I've got the workbooks, which I have in my bookcase of 2 big workbooks. And so I was like, all right, let's start training the model. So we took one full class, converted it into text because it was all audio. It wasn't, so that took the most time. That was about 7 hours worth of effort. And then we converted it into text. And then we trained the model. GPT can't consume 250 small text files. So you have to combine them. A little bit of work. But once now you have it. And then we said, all right, we want these chapters in the book. And what it was putting out, quoting texts from the interactions from the classes. Well, then she called the timeout. She goes, okay, hey, this went way faster than I thought it would to get to this point. I thought this was a multi-year book writing process. And here I am, not a real book writer, but GPT can do it. And so we had to put a timeout, and we said, all right, let's delete it because we don't want her content floating around in GPT. We said, hey, is it too late? Can you cord it off? And said, yeah, no, we got you. It's deleted. It will never be accessible in the GPT world. Got it. So then my next task with her is, let's figure out, is it Gemini? Is it Perplexity? Who will cord it off so that it's not accessible in the public GPT world? It has to be a kind of private LLM. And then also she quotes people from some of her training, right? Hey, this is from 1950s, this person and that person. What's acceptable to it be incorporated into the training and what's not, like needs to be cited as a source. So all of those things, but it's just sitting right there ready to be deployed. And then now that I have all that, imagine if I said, now create a sales book around all of this 30 years of training and incorporate any sales questions that came up in those classes. It could just grab perfect examples that are just placed in an amazing way, or build an app aligned to that methodology. The world's your oyster in this new world that we live in.
Yeah, I think so too. You brought up some really good points. One is just about, data security and ethics of recording and collecting all of that stuff is one thing, but that is the context that you need to create great marketing and great sales materials in 2025 and beyond, especially with AI. And then you got a lot of strategic business choices to make. I've been a part of many of these discussions with my clients and employers, and it's fascinating because I think the apps are one thing because they're not necessarily getting access to the materials. But if you're in the business of publishing books or materials or giving away your IP selling your IP to your clients, there's nothing stopping your clients from then uploading those documents to ChatGPT, and it's still becoming public, even if you didn't want it to. And the more and more these cases get settled, I thought it would be the case that AI is not stealing or copying intellectual property. It's rewriting your work in its own words, which humans have been doing for thousands of years. So so far there hasn't been any protection from that. So fascinating business decisions going forward. I guess, Chad, I got two more questions for you. One is, where do you think it all lands? What do you think the world of sales looks like in 10, 15 years from now?
There's been a lot of people that are speaking publicly about the dangers of AI. And when you accelerate the speed at which decisions are made and failures and successes can be made, and you enter in the human paradigm of the flaws of what humans bring to the table, and now you just accelerate it to a 10,000x number. You know, the godfather of AI was on an hour-long show. I've been doing the 75 hard, working out 2 times a day for 40
nice.
minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm on day 30 today. And so it gives me a lot of YouTube time where I'm watching a lot of AI related content lately. And the common theme is, and there's 5 or 6 vectors where this thing could run away with it all. And so let me just share this one thing. I had this guy on the podcast the other day, and they go in, they're called originality.ai. So they will read the originality, like of our conversation, it's 100% original talk. So it'd grade us as 100% original talk. It went in, and they worked with a publisher who was about to buy another big publishing house, and they wanted to find out how much was AI generated versus personalized. And they're looking for like 10, 15% AI. And they found some that was 80 to 90% AI. And it's like, oh, whoa. Now, but here's the scary part. When one of these articles was written about mushrooms, if you tried the wrong mushroom, you could die. This article that was written by AI and published said, oh yeah, just go ahead and try all the mushrooms. That's how you can see if it's cool or not. So that's a good example of how a harmless little AI that's gotten a little bit out of control could actually cause the death of a human being. So if you take that and you multiply that by 1,000, all good plans are of mice and men. You know? So
if you had to pick a sci-fi movie, which one do you think we would end up in, and which one do you hope we would?
I hope we end up in the Jetsons, and I hope we don't end up in the Terminator. Like, the Jetsons sounds awesome. Everybody's in flying cars. Your toaster's on AI. Everything's on AI. You don't have to work out because you just got a little pulse meter in your belly that's probably going. You know?
Yeah, we've come up with even cooler stuff like the nanobots and stuff that they didn't even think of when they were doing the Jetsons.
Yeah, they didn't even think of it. I do have an electric car now, and my license plate reads Sales AI.
Hey, there you go. We've been talking to Chad Burmeister from the AI for Sales podcast. You can find him at chadburmeister.com or connect with him on LinkedIn, big following, and always publishing on there as well. Chad, how can you help us, or how can we help you?
Stay focused on the business ethics side so that we get the Jetsons outcome, because it's our responsibility as individual people in the machine to raise our hand and say, wait, I see that thing could run away in a rogue sort of way. Let's put a little bit of governance. And that's where I'm excited with Informatica, data governance, master data management. If you're not thinking about governing your data, then you're going to let it go wild, and you're going to tell people to eat bad mushrooms. So let's not do that. Let's make it the world of Jetsons world and not a Terminator world.
I love that. And also from the Avenue 9 perspective, I think we were talking about several things that sound easy when you say just collect the context or something, but a lot of people aren't good at articulating it. So what I do at Avenue 9 is interview your founder, your top salespeople, your best clients, and create this contextual database around your story. And sometimes people can't get that the first try. They need an interview from a podcaster and broadcaster like myself to help them tell that story. And I love doing that. And then once you have that, helping you separate out the AI hype and from what's real, especially for small businesses. You can't go crazy. You don't want to make huge investments and risk your company on it, but you also can't ignore what's happening with AI and marketing and sales right now. So reach out if I can help, avenue9.com. Until next time, good luck. Keep going, everybody.